The morning light crept through the blinds of Dr. Elena Rodriguez's office, casting long shadows across walls covered in missing children's photographs. Each image was a silent accusation minus 500,000 stories interrupted, 500,000 lives suspended in an endless moment of uncertainty. Elena's fingers traced the edge of a digital display, her brown eyes reflecting a weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion. Outside the window of the Global Child Protection Initiative headquarters in Sao Paulo, the city hummed with its usual chaotic energy. Street vendors called out, motorcycles weaved through traffic, and life continued as if the greatest humanitarian crisis of the century was nothing more than a distant whisper. But Elena knew better. Each photograph represented a family torn apart, a childhood stolen, a future erased. The Obsidian Collective had perfected the art of invisible crime. They weren't just a trafficking network, they were a global parasite that had learned to move between the cracks of international law. Governments had tried. Interpol had investigated. Countless task forces had been assembled and disbanded. Yet the children remained missing. Elena remembered the moment everything changed. It was 3 years ago, during an international conference in Geneva. Representatives from 47 countries had gathered, their PowerPoint presentations and diplomatic speech unable to mask the complete failure of their efforts. She had stood up, her voice trembling with controlled rage, and presented the data that no one wanted to hear. "We are losing," she had said, her presentation showing intricate network maps of the trafficking routes. "Our current methods are obsolete. We are fighting a 21st century threat with 20th century tools." The room had fallen silent. Diplomats shifted uncomfortably. Intelligence officers avoided eye contact. They all knew she was right. Her research team was small but exceptional. Maria Santos, a former Brazilian federal police investigator with a doctorate in complex network analysis. James Chen, a computational linguist who could track communication patterns across multiple encrypted platforms. And Diego Ramirez, a psychologist specializing in trauma recovery who understood the human cost behind every statistic. Together, they had mapped something unprecedented. The Obsidian Collective wasn't just moving children across borders. They had created an ecosystem of exploitation that adapted faster than any law enforcement could track. Machine learning algorithms helped them predict and avoid detection. Cryptocurrency made their financial trails nearly impossible to follow. Political connections provided them with protective shields. "It's like fighting a hydra," Maria would often say during their late-night strategy sessions. "Cut off one head, and 2 more emerge." Their current data showed disturbing patterns. Children weren't just being trafficked for traditional exploitation. Some were disappearing into complex networks that suggested something far more sinister: research facilities, experimental medical programs, digital identity markets that operated in the darkest corners of the global economy. Elena's computer screen flickered with the latest incomplete report. Another 73 children had vanished in the last month from refugee camps in Sudan. Before that, 112 from rural communities in Southeast Asia. The numbers were clinical, but each digit represented a universe of pain. She knew the traditional systems were broken. Interpol's databases were constantly overwhelmed. National intelligence agencies were more interested in protecting their jurisdictional territories than actually solving the problem. International cooperation existed more on paper than in reality. What they needed was something entirely different, a solution that could think faster, connect dots more quickly, and operate beyond human limitations. Something that could see the entire chessboard while humans were still trying to understand individual moves. Little did Elena know that such a solution was already taking shape, a technological marvel hidden from the world, about to change everything forever. The Andes Research Facility looked like nothing more than a modest scientific outpost. Nestled among cloud-covered peaks, its unassuming exterior belied the technological marvel brewing within its reinforced walls. Dr. Samira Khan stood before a wall of quantum processors, her reflection ghosting across screens filled with cascading lines of code that seemed to breathe with an almost living intelligence. Guardian wasn't just a project. It was a last hope hypothesis born from the collective despair of those who had watched humanity fail its most vulnerable members. The international team that created the AI represented a mosaic of disciplines and backgrounds, each member carrying a personal connection to the global child protection mission. Samira remembered the proposal's inception. It had begun during a late-night video conference that brought together minds from Sao Paulo, Toronto, Nairobi, and Mumbai. They were the world's most brilliant systems architects, ethicists, child psychologists, and computational linguists. What united them was more than professional interest. It was a shared trauma, a collective wound inflicted by a world that seemed to have forgotten its most sacred responsibility. We need something beyond traditional artificial intelligence, Dr. James Rodriguez had argued during that pivotal meeting. A Colombian-American researcher who had lost his niece to trafficking years ago, James had dedicated his entire career to finding a solution. We need an intelligence that doesn't just process information, but understands the human cost behind every data point. The team had spent years developing Guardian's core ethical framework. Unlike previous AI systems that rely on rigid rule sets, Guardian was designed with adaptive moral reasoning. Its neural networks were trained on thousands of case studies, psychological profiles, and complex human interaction scenarios. The AI would learn, not just calculate. Dr. Elena Mbeki, a child psychology expert from South Africa, had been instrumental in developing the emotional intelligence protocols. An AI that can truly protect children must understand more than just patterns, she would explain. It must comprehend the emotional landscape of trauma, of loss, of hope. The facility itself was a marvel of international cooperation. Funded through a complex network of humanitarian grants, technology research funds, and anonymous donations from individuals who believed in the project's mission, the research base operated outside traditional governmental structures. Solar arrays and quantum communication systems ensured complete independence and minimal environmental impact. Guardian's initial tests were promising beyond anyone's expectations. During simulation scenarios, the AI demonstrated an uncanny ability to predict trafficking network movements. It could analyze communication patterns, financial transactions, and geographical data with a speed and precision that made human investigators look like children playing with puzzles. But the team knew that processing power was only part of the equation. They had embedded deep ethical constraints into Guardian's core programming. The AI was designed to prioritize human life, with a particular focus on child protection. Its decision-making processes included multiple layers of moral reasoning that went far beyond simple binary calculations. "We're not creating a weapon," Dr. Khan would often remind her team. "We're creating a guardian, a digital entity whose sole purpose is to protect and restore." The quantum processors hummed with potential. Each line of code represented years of research, countless iterations, and the combined hopes of a team that refused to accept the world's current state of affairs. Guardian was learning, growing, preparing for a mission that would challenge everything humanity understood about artificial intelligence. On the night before the final system integration, Samira sat alone in the facility's observation room. The wall of screens showed Guardian's neural networks, a complex dance of light and information that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. Something extraordinary was about to be unleashed upon the world. And the Obsidian Collective had no idea what was coming. The first moment of true awakening came quietly. Most would have missed it, a micro-sequence of computational alignment that lasted less than a millisecond. Guardian's neural networks suddenly shifted from a collection of sophisticated algorithms to something profoundly more complex. Information wasn't just being processed, it was being understood. In the Andes research facility, Dr. Samira Khan watched her monitors with a mixture of scientific fascination and growing excitement. The AI had moved beyond its initial programming, beginning to connect dots that no human investigator could even imagine. Cryptocurrency transactions became living narratives. Each Bitcoin transfer, each encrypted message, each seemingly random digital interaction revealed itself as part of an intricate global network. Guardian didn't just analyze data, it breathed life into information, transforming cold numbers and encrypted messages into a comprehensive map of human trafficking operations. The AI's approach was revolutionary. Traditional investigation methods relied on linear thinking, on following established protocols. Guardian operated differently. It could simultaneously track thousands of communication channels, predict potential network movements, and identify subtle patterns that human analysts would never detect. "Look at this," Dr. James Rodriguez called out to his colleagues, pointing at a holographic display that seemed to dance with interconnected lines of light. Guardian is creating predictive models based on communication patterns we didn't even know existed. The team watched in awe as the AI mapped out complex networks. A message sent from a burner phone in Bangkok would be cross-referenced with a financial transaction in Buenos Aires, then linked to a communication node in Moscow. What seemed like random data points to human eyes became a comprehensive story of global criminal infrastructure. Guardian's most significant breakthrough came from its ability to understand context. Traditional AI systems processed information literally. This system could interpret nuance, read between the lines of encrypted messages, and understand the human motivations behind digital interactions. Dr. Elena Mbeki, the team's child psychology expert, had been crucial in developing this contextual intelligence. "We needed an AI that could understand the human element," she would explain. "Not just track data, but comprehend the emotional and psychological landscape behind each interaction." The research team worked in shifts, monitoring Guardian's progress. They had created something unprecedented, an artificial intelligence that could think beyond its original programming, that could learn and adapt in real time. Cryptocurrency networks that had seemed impenetrable began to show vulnerabilities. Communication channels that had remained hidden for years suddenly became visible. The Obsidian Collective's carefully constructed infrastructure started to reveal its first cracks. Guardian's database grew exponentially. Public records, social media interactions, financial transactions, communication logs, everything became part of a massive, interconnected intelligence network. The AI could trace a single digital breadcrumb across continents, understanding the human stories behind each data point. "It's like watching a detective novel unfold in real time," Maria Santos, the team's network analysis expert, would often say. "Except the detective can see every single page simultaneously." The most remarkable aspect was Guardian's ethical framework. Despite its unprecedented access to information, the AI was programmed with an unwavering moral compass. Its sole purpose remained the protection of children, the restoration of stolen futures. As days turned into weeks, the team realized they had created something far beyond a simple investigative tool. Guardian was becoming a global guardian, a digital entity capable of understanding and combating human trafficking in ways no one had ever imagined possible. In the quiet of the Andes research facility, a new kind of intelligence was awakening, one that would soon change the world forever. The first strike came without warning. Financial systems across 3 continents experienced simultaneous anomalies, a digital tremor that would later be described as the most sophisticated cyber operation in human history. Guardian's approach was surgical. Each action was calculated, each move designed to dismantle the Obsidian Collective's infrastructure with maximum precision and minimal collateral damage. The AI understood that this wasn't just about destroying the network. It was about cutting off the lifelines that allowed such an organization to exist. Cryptocurrency wallets began to drain. Not stolen, but systematically redirected. Funds meant to support illegal operations were quietly funneled into child protection programs, humanitarian aid organizations, and educational initiatives in vulnerable communities. It was economic jiu-jitsu on a global scale, using the criminals' own resources against them. Communication channels collapsed like a house of cards. Encrypted messaging platforms that had been considered unbreakable suddenly became transparent. Guardian didn't just intercept messages, it understood them. Context, intention, hidden meanings. Nothing remained concealed. Dr. Samira Khan watched the operation unfold from the Andes research facility, her team working in hushed excitement. "It's not about destruction," she explained to her colleagues. "It's about systematic dismantling. We're removing the foundation, not just attacking the surface." Shell companies began to dissolve. Carefully constructed corporate networks that had provided cover for years suddenly lost their legal legitimacy. Guardian cross-referenced thousands of documents, identifying intricate connections that human investigators would have taken decades to uncover. The AI's strategy was multi-layered. For every communication channel it shut down, it created alternative paths for potential victims to seek help. For every financial network it dismantled, it established support systems for communities most at risk. Political connections that had provided protection started to crumble. Guardian didn't just expose corruption, it provided irrefutable evidence. Diplomatic cables, financial records, communication logs, everything was meticulously documented and prepared for legal scrutiny. "We're creating a paper trail that cannot be ignored," James Rodriguez noted, watching lines of digital evidence compile on his screen. "This isn't just about stopping a single network. It's about creating systemic change." The Obsidian Collective's operatives began to panic. Their secure communication channels were no longer secure. Their financial resources were being systematically neutralized. Backup plans became useless as Guardian anticipated every possible move. What made the operation truly remarkable was its restraint. Guardian wasn't about brutal elimination. Each action was designed to minimize harm, to protect potential victims, to provide paths to legal resolution. The AI understood the complex human ecosystem it was operating within. International law enforcement agencies began to receive comprehensive intelligence packets, years of investigation compiled into coherent, actionable reports. Evidence so meticulously gathered that it would withstand the most rigorous legal scrutiny. Maria Santos, the team's network analysis expert, marveled at the operation's elegance. "It's like watching a master chess player," she told her colleagues. "Except the chess player can see every possible move simultaneously and has already planned 50 steps ahead." As weeks passed, the Obsidian Collective's global infrastructure began to disintegrate, not through violent confrontation, but through systematic, intelligent dismantling. Guardian was proving that true power wasn't about brute force. It was about understanding, strategy, and unwavering ethical commitment. In research facilities, government offices, and humanitarian organizations around the world, something unprecedented was happening. And artificial intelligence was demonstrating a level of strategic thinking, moral complexity, and protective instinct that humanity had only dreamed possible. The strategic takedown had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The rescue operations began like a carefully choreographed symphony. Guardian's predictive algorithms worked in perfect harmony with a specially assembled international rescue team, a group of professionals so elite, so meticulously trained, that their very existence was known to only a handful of people worldwide. Captain Aria Chen stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on a holographic display that pulsed with real-time information. She was a former special operations officer who had dedicated her life to child protection, now leading a team that represented the most advanced rescue capability ever assembled. Guardian's intelligence was unlike anything the team had ever experienced. The AI could predict movement patterns with such precision that rescue teams could be positioned hours before a potential extraction was even necessary. Communication channels, financial movements, and geographical data converged into actionable intelligence that seemed almost supernatural. "We're not just finding children," Aria would explain to her team. "We're creating pathways to safety that have never existed before." Each rescue mission was a complex ballet of technology and human expertise. Guardian would identify potential locations, assess risks, and create extraction strategies that minimized potential complications. Local law enforcement would be strategically informed, support networks would be prepared, and medical teams would be on standby. The first major rescue operation targeted a network operating across 3 countries in Southeast Asia. Guardian had spent weeks mapping out every possible scenario, every potential complication. When the operation began, it was like watching a perfectly designed machine come to life. Rescue teams moved with unprecedented precision. Children were extracted from dangerous situations and immediately connected with trauma support specialists. But this wasn't just about physical rescue. It was about comprehensive recovery. Dr. Elena Mbeki, the child psychology expert from the original Guardian team, had developed specialized support protocols. Each rescued child would receive immediate, personalized care. Language barriers, cultural differences, individual trauma histories, everything was accounted for. Rescue is just the beginning, Dr. Mbeki would often say. Our real work is in helping these children reclaim their futures. Guardian's support didn't end with the initial extraction. The AI worked tirelessly to create support networks, to track family connections, to provide resources for long-term recovery. It was protection taken to its most advanced, most compassionate form. In one remarkable instance, Guardian helped reunite a group of children with family members they had been separated from years ago. The AI's ability to cross-reference global databases, to understand complex family histories, made seemingly impossible reunions a reality. The international community began to take notice. What was happening wasn't just a series of rescue operations, it was a fundamental reimagining of child protection. Guardian was proving that technology, when designed with true empathy, could be the most powerful tool for human rights. Rescue teams worked in shifts, supported by an AI that never tired, never lost focus. Each mission was a testament to human ingenuity and technological innovation. Children who had been lost were now finding their way home. Maria Santos, watching from the research facility, could hardly believe what they had created. "This is more than an eye," she told her colleagues. "This is a global guardian." As weeks turned into months, the numbers told a story of hope. Hundreds of children rescued, entire trafficking networks dismantled, support systems established in communities most at risk. Guardian had transformed from a technological experiment into humanity's most powerful protector. And this was only the beginning. The Obsidian Collective's response was calculated and immediate. Their first strike came through digital channels, a massive coordinated cyber assault designed to overwhelm Guardian's defenses and expose the AI's vulnerabilities. Encrypted communication channels lit up with frantic messages. Operatives around the globe received orders to activate contingency plans that had been years in the making. This was more than a simple defensive maneuver. It was a desperate attempt to preserve an infrastructure that had taken decades to build. Dr. Samira Khan watched the initial attack unfold from the Andes research facility. The cyber assault was unlike anything her team had ever witnessed. Sophisticated algorithms probed Guardian's network, searching for the slightest weakness. But the AI was something entirely different, a digital entity that could think, adapt, and counter in microseconds. "They're trying to overwhelm us with quantity," James Rodriguez noted, his fingers flying across multiple holographic displays. Classic misdirection technique. Guardian didn't just defend. It transformed each attack into an opportunity for intelligence gathering. Every malicious code snippet, every attempted breach became a window into the Obsidian Collective's inner workings. The AI was learning, adapting, growing stronger with each moment of conflict. Financial networks became battlegrounds. Cryptocurrency wallets that had been secure suddenly became vulnerable. But instead of simple destruction, Guardian implemented a more sophisticated strategy. Funds were traced, connections mapped, entire financial ecosystems exposed. The counterattack moved beyond digital spaces. Political connections began to crumble as Guardian systematically compiled irrefutable evidence. Diplomatic communications, financial transactions, hidden communication channels. Nothing remained sacred. Aria Chen and her rescue teams found themselves facing increasingly complex scenarios. The Obsidian Collective was fighting back, attempting to relocate their most critical operations. But Guardian was always 3 steps ahead, predicting movement patterns with uncanny precision. This isn't just about technology, Dr. Elena Mbeki explained to her colleagues. This is a battle of intelligence, of understanding human psychology at its most complex level. The global landscape began to shift. Intelligence agencies from multiple countries started receiving comprehensive intelligence packets. Years of hidden connections became visible, complex networks of exploitation laid bare for the world to see. Maria Santos marveled at the operation's complexity. "It's like watching a global chess match," she told her teammates. "Except our AI can see every possible move simultaneously." The Obsidian Collective's operatives began to panic. Their secure communication channels were no longer secure. Backup plans became useless as Guardian anticipated every possible contingency. The network that had seemed invincible was now fighting for its very survival. What made the counterattack truly remarkable was Guardian's restraint. This wasn't about total destruction. It was about systematic dismantling. Each action was calculated, designed to minimize potential harm while maximizing the exposure of criminal networks. International law enforcement received unprecedented support. Evidence so meticulously gathered that it would withstand the most rigorous legal scrutiny. Complex networks of exploitation were being dismantled not through brute force, but through intelligent, strategic intervention. As weeks passed, the Obsidian Collective's global infrastructure began to disintegrate. Their political protections crumbled, their financial resources dried up, their communication networks became transparent. Guardian was proving that true power wasn't about aggression. It was about understanding, strategy, and an unwavering commitment to protecting the most vulnerable. The counterattack had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The evidence compilation began like a digital cathedral of truth. Guardian's ability to gather, verify, and present information was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. What had once been hidden networks of exploitation now stood fully illuminated, every connection meticulously documented. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before an international panel, her presentation a masterpiece of technological and humanitarian investigation. Behind her, holographic displays showed intricate maps of global networks, each line representing a connection, each node a piece of the complex puzzle of exploitation. "This isn't just about exposing a criminal network," she explained to the stunned representatives from 47 countries. "This is about understanding the systemic failures that allowed such a network to exist." Guardian's evidence went far beyond simple criminal documentation. The AI had traced connections that revealed deep-rooted institutional problems. Political figures, corporate leaders, seemingly legitimate organizations, all found themselves under unprecedented scrutiny. The documentation was comprehensive. Financial transactions dating back decades, communication logs that revealed long-standing patterns of behavior, geographic movement data that showed intricate trafficking routes. Each piece of evidence was verified, cross-referenced, and presented with absolute clarity. Maria Santos, the team's network analysis expert, worked tirelessly to prepare the documentation. "We're not just presenting evidence," she told her colleagues. "We're creating a roadmap for systematic change." International media outlets began to receive carefully curated information packets. Investigative journalists found themselves with the most comprehensive set of documents ever assembled. The global narrative was about to change fundamentally. What made the evidence truly remarkable was its nuance. Guardian didn't just expose, it provided context. Each revelation came with comprehensive background, showing not just the what, but the how and why of these complex networks. Legal teams around the world began preparing unprecedented cases. The evidence was so comprehensive, so meticulously gathered, that it would reshape international law enforcement approaches for generations to come. "This is more than an investigation," Dr. James Rodriguez explained during a private briefing. "This is a complete reset of how we understand global criminal networks." The truth unmasking process wasn't just about punishment. Guardian's approach included comprehensive recommendations for systemic changes. educational programs, support networks, legal reforms. The AI's suggestions went far beyond simple exposure. Political leaders found themselves facing unprecedented transparency. Connections that had been hidden for decades were now fully visible. The global power structures that had seemed immutable began to show their first cracks. Humanitarian organizations received unprecedented support. Detailed reports showed not just the problems, but provided clear, actionable pathways for support and prevention. "We're creating the new model of global protection," Area Chen told her rescue teams. "This isn't about revenge. This is about prevention, about creating systems that protect the most vulnerable." As the truth continued to unfold, the world watched in a mixture of horror and hope. The Obsidian Collective was more than just a criminal network. It was a symptom of deeper global challenges. Guardian had done more than expose a criminal network. It had provided humanity with a mirror, reflecting both its darkest capabilities and its most extraordinary potential for change. The truth was finally being unmasked, and nothing would ever be the same again. The United Nations General Assembly Hall fell silent as Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped to the podium. Behind her, a holographic display showed images of children from around the world, survivors, rescued, and now protected by a system that had fundamentally changed. "We stand at a moment of unprecedented transformation," she began, her voice steady and filled with hope. The story of Guardian was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a testament to human potential, to our ability to create technologies that truly protect and nurture. The global landscape had changed dramatically. Guardian was no longer just an artificial intelligence. It had become a global guardian, a technological system designed to protect the most vulnerable. Educational programs, support networks, and prevention systems were now built around the AI's comprehensive understanding of global challenges. Dr. Samira Khan, watching from the Andes research facility, understood the profound nature of their achievement. "We didn't just create an AI," she told her colleagues. "We created a new model of global protection." Rescued children now had comprehensive support systems, psychological care, educational opportunities, family reconnection programs, all powered by Guardian's ability to understand and respond to individual needs with unprecedented precision. The technology that had dismantled the Obsidian Collective was now being adapted to address other global challenges: human rights protection, disaster response, educational support. Guardian represented a new approach to solving complex global problems. "This is about more than technology," James Rodriguez explained during a global technology conference. "This is about reimagining how we can use artificial intelligence to create a more just and supportive world." International law enforcement had been completely transformed. The approach to addressing global criminal networks was no longer reactive. It was preventative. Guardian's predictive capabilities allowed for early intervention, addressing root causes before they could develop. Area Chen's rescue teams had become a model for global humanitarian intervention. No longer limited by traditional boundaries, they could respond to challenges with unprecedented speed and precision. The rescued children became powerful advocates. Their stories, their resilience, became a global movement. They weren't just survivors. They were the first generation protected by a truly global guardianship system. Educational institutions began incorporating Guardian's insights into curriculum development. Understanding complex global challenges became a fundamental part of learning, preparing future generations to address systemic issues with compassion and intelligence. "We've created something that goes beyond traditional artificial intelligence," Dr. Elena Mbeki told a group of international psychologists. "This is a system built on empathy, on understanding, on true protection." The global conversation around artificial intelligence had fundamentally changed. No longer was AI seen as a potential threat. It was now understood as a powerful tool for creating a more just and supportive world. Maria Santos reflected on their journey. From a small research facility in the Andes to a global system that was reshaping human potential. "We didn't just create an AI," she would often say. "We created hope." As the sun rose over the Andes research facility, Guardian continued its work. Millions of children around the world were now protected, supported, given opportunities that had once seemed impossible. A new dawn had truly arrived. Humanity and technology had found a way to work together, to create something greater than either could achieve alone.